Hey guys, so today I had a little bit of a story time. People have been asking me about any bear encounters here in Montana. Um, I don't have any bad ones, but I do have plenty of bear encounters. So I just wanted to share some of the things that you can expect living in Montana, spending your time in the woods, hiking, hunting, camping, mountain biking, running, I don't know, whatever you want to do in the woods, but I got a neat little campfire going here on my property. Just got a whole bunch of brush I'm trying to burn, um, clearing out this area for potential cabin someday. And so why not have some story time by fire? So of course I got some tea here, my favorite black tea, and then of course my wife made me some chocolate chip cookies. Has my name on it, so these are mine, obviously. But let's see. First off, I don't have too many grizzly encounters or even sightings. I have never seen a wild grizzly here in Montana. I mean, I've spent 2.5 years hunting in Montana, at least 3 years hiking in Montana. I mean, I live in the woods. I could see a spot where I glassed up a black bear. So I live in bear country, and surprisingly, and I live in northwest Montana, which is one of the, most populated grizzly areas in the lower 48. I work near Glacier National Park. I can see Glacier from my work window. I can almost see the Bob Marshall Wilderness from my work window. Two really, really highly grizzly populated areas. And I have yet to see a truly wild grizzly here in Montana. I have seen a wild grizzly in, oh gosh, what was it? In Yellowstone. So pretty much right by the Yellowstone sign, I've seen a pretty big boar. I think I have a video I'm going to share in this video. And I got to probably about 150 yards, maybe less, with my wife. We were just driving through on the way home and decided to take the scenic route. Drove through Yellowstone and the Teton National Parks. And there was like 50 to, 75 people probably out staring at this grizzly just eating the grass. And we didn't feel threatened or endangered or anything at all. And this guy was, huge. I'm assuming he was a male. I don't know. But no issues there. I mean, we were probably 100, 150 yards away. He saw all the people. He did not care. Typical Yellowstone behavior. You don't touch them. They don't bother you. They're fully aware of all the people, fully aware of cars. So we just kind of got close, got some videos. Got some cool photos of them. And that was in Wyoming. One other time I saw grizzlies was in Canada, in Vancouver. I think in a place called Grouse Mountain. They have like a grizzly encounter thing there where you could pretty much be like 20 yards from the grizzlies, and there's like a high fence, probably electric, and that's the closest I've ever been to grizzly before. So, living in the Rockies, you think you're just going to be running into grizzlies all the time. Definitely not the case. Before I moved here from Western Washington, I kind of thought I was going to be like dodging grizzlies on the way to work every morning. I have a hard time even finding a grizzly in the mountains looking for one, let alone dodging it on the way to work every morning. So, that smoke break. Smoke right in my face. So yeah, grizzlies doesn't really happen. Black bears, different story. Here in Montana, there's a lot of black bears. Montana is pretty big, so statewide we have a pretty large population of them. Washington State has a pretty large population of them. Surprisingly, in my 20-some years of living in Washington State, I've only seen one black bear in the wild. And it's kind of funny because it was the very first season that I started hunting. I had hardly any idea what a deer was, what an elk was, what a bear looked like. You know, just whatever you see in the movies. And I was driving out to my hunting blind before season, and I was trying to like check up on it or something, fix it up or whatever I had. And I was driving through the mountains, just hauling ass on these gravel roads, dirt roads. And I was turning this corner, and this black bear just jumped out of that bend where water was kind of seeping underneath the ground in a culvert. And he just jumped out right there and just started running up the mountain, and I had to hit my brakes to avoid hitting this guy. I mean, it wasn't like super close, but I did have to tap on the brakes, because if I didn't, I probably would have hit him. It wasn't a monster bear, but it was absolutely shocking to me that there were bears, like, you know, this was probably 400 yards from my blind, 500 yards, something like that. So to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? But never had an issue with the bear again. I actually had a mountain lion sighting that same season. You know, a lot of people can go like their entire lives hunting and never see a mountain lion, maybe never even see a bear, I don't know. But that first hunting season I've ever attempted to hunt had a mountain lion and a bear sighting. So that was my exposure to the wild starting off, and I was hooked. Ever since I saw that lion and that bear, I was just hooked. I wanted to see all the wildlife I could. So that video of the very first bear I've ever seen in the wild, I actually have it on a dash cam video, believe it or not. The one time the dash cam actually works right, I got that video saved. So I'm going to try to find it and put it on this one. But that was like the very first bear I've ever seen while out hunting. Trying to remember all of them. I have seen numerous bears just driving down mountain roads and by lakes and in the mountains and stuff, and you just see them running across the road sometimes. And, you know, usually you don't really get a good glimpse of them because it's like a black dot running around. So I think that happened probably, 2 or 3 times since I moved out here. Then of course the 3 bears that I shot, I have this year's video uploaded. You guys can find that. Last year I was not doing YouTube, so I don't have any hunting videos of that one, but that one I also was driving down some mountain roads, kind of just hoping and praying that I was going to see a bear, and sure enough, God blessed me and had this big beautiful chocolate boar run out in front of the road while I was driving. So I pulled over, grabbed my gun, and ran after him. And he ran down the hill. There's a creek down at the bottom, and he ran up the other side. And I shot him across that creek. The creek's probably like 2 feet wide, you know, nothing deep or anything, but he was walking this pretty big log, and it was like maybe a 75, 80 yard shot. one time through both lungs, and took about half an hour, 45 minutes looking for him. And then the very first bear I shot, so I do have a video of that guy. Small 4-foot bear, but man, are they misleading trying to figure out how big they actually are. And I was only 125 yards or so away from this guy, but when I saw him through the binos, I immediately was like, well, there's a grizzly. Pull over, so I stopped, got the binos out, got the phone up to the binos, and got a little bit of a video of him. But the more I watched him, he just didn't seem to care I was there, and I realized this is not a grizzly. This is a black bear. I got to shoot this guy. So I hiked that day probably 6 miles, got up to the top of this mountain, and saw almost no bear sign. It's getting close to the end of the season. I was getting pretty desperate, and on the way back, I just got snowed and rained all day. It was just soaking wet, just miserable. Hauling all this gear up, spotting scope, tripod, up this mountain, and didn't see anything all day, so I hiked back in shame. And as I'm driving back, I'm just praying, asking God to bless me if this is the path that He wants me to go, if this is the way He wants me to live and provide for myself and my family. And hunting is something that I believe that God has introduced me to and blessed me in. And so I figured, God, if this is the path You want me to take, then bless me with animals. Help me fill tags. And gosh, probably not even 10 minutes later, I shot that bear. So and that was a very small, non-existent pack out because it was so close to the road, old forest road. And when I first walked up on him, I thought it was someone else's bear because of how small it was. I thought it was huge in the binos, and then when I got up to it, I was like, this has to be someone else's bear. What the heck? Well, how is this so small? And then, I put my hand on it, and the thing's still warm, and I'm like, well, there's nobody else out here. This has to be my bear. Thankfully, I got a recording of that bear before I shot it, and he didn't really move. So when I actually went to go locate this bear, I could not find any blood. And I had to go back to my video and try to find exactly which patch of grass and which rock he was standing by, and go back and try to look at the bend in the road and the trees behind him and all that, trying to get to exactly where this guy went, because it was so thick. Steep on one side down, steep on the other side up, and it was so thick, so I figured I needed all the help I could get. So I looked at that video and pinpointed where that bear was, and the most challenging part about bear hunting sometimes is you shoot a bear, now you got to go get it, and you don't actually know if the bear is dead or not. So when I saw that patch of fur or whatever, I just stepped back, picked up a couple rocks, threw the rocks in that general area with the gun ready, just in case that bear decided to jump up and run or turn around and snatch me up. So a couple rocks, and bear didn't move, so I walked up on him and thought, man, this is someone else's bear. What the heck? But man, that bear is beautiful. I got a full rug made out of him, hanging up at home. And he didn't have, he's kind of small, 4-foot bear. He was a boar. He was not with any sows. I watched him for a little bit. He was eating grass, had a full mouthful of grass. So wouldn't believe he'd be nursing. I know that some bears will eat grass, but then will spit it out. They won't swallow it, and they'll just keep nursing into June. This guy looked like he was fully on his own, but he was a 4-foot bear. That's pretty big. That's not really a cub size, but I guess they do get rather big, and still with the sow. So, but I believe I made the right call there. I had no idea this bear was 4 foot. He was by himself, and awesome bear. So those are my 3 bears that I've shot. And then one time I was out shed hunting. I was just looking for sheds. I found an entire moose skeleton. I found one chewed up junk whitetail shed that I didn't even keep, but I found an entire moose skeleton, the whole skull and everything. It was a cow. And as I started dropping back down towards where the car was, that was probably about 400 yards from where the Jeep was, and I was kind of staying in the thicket, so it was a clear cut, and on the edge of this clear cut where I went up, and I crossed over to the other side and shed hunted in there, and then I went back up to get back to the car, and I started going down, and so this edge of the clear cut had a whole bunch of huckleberries, and I marked it in my phone for huckleberries, and there's also some raspberries or thimbleberries or something like that, and I marked it in my phone. And on the way back, I kind of wanted to not come back the exact same way I came, so I could see some new country and maybe find a shed. You know, why take the exact same route? You know, there's no sheds there, so I wanted to take a little bit different route. So I started walking through the thick stuff, and it was like blowdowns, logging. You know, there's some big logs over, and as I'm walking through this, I just hear this huffing and panting and breathing, just really heavy, and it scared the absolute snot out of me. And I don't know if it was a grizzly or if it was a black bear. I know there's some grizzlies in that area, but that area was covered in huckleberries, so I'm sure it was a bear. But to this day, I don't know if it was a grizzly or a black bear. I was probably about 50 to 80 yards away from this bear, and at that point I was maybe about 250 yards away from my Jeep, and that bear was exactly between me and the Jeep. So I could have, you know, circled around, got back down, but I really didn't want to be out there longer than I needed to, so I just stayed put and I just stayed silent, and that thing was making so much noise. I got pretty scared, but I was so curious what it was, because at first it didn't click with me that it was a bear. I thought maybe it was a deer, just, I don't know. And they don't really eat huckleberries, and they don't fight or rake or anything. And gosh, what was this, August? So I don't know. Could have been a grizzly, but I will never know. But I'm 99.9% sure that it was a bear that I was 50 yards away from. And I did try to kind of sneak up on it because I really, really wanted to see what this was, and I never did get a shot. Never did get a look at it. Oh, huckleberries and bears, man, they go hand in hand. If you're huckleberry picking, you better keep an eye out. This one other time, my wife and I were up this one lookout about 8,000 feet up, and we were looking for huckleberries, and we wanted to see this lookout because we've never been up there before. And on the way back down, we started seeing huckleberries, and we stopped, picked a couple handfuls, and I was just thinking, you know, there's got to be better huckleberries somewhere around here. It's kind of slim pickings around here. So we just kept going down, down, down. Eventually we got to a spot that looked like it had some really good huckleberries, and I was looking for a place to pull over. And right as we turn this corner, this bear just jumps out right out of the middle of the road. There was huckleberries on both sides of the road, and this bear just jumped out and ran up the hill, and I immediately slammed on the brakes and rolled the windows down to get a good look at this bear. And I have some videos of that guy. I'm not that great, but I do have some videos, so I'll post those. And he did not leave that area. We were probably there for an hour, maybe more, and he just would not leave that berry patch. And I shut the engine off, but eventually, once in a while, I would shut it on and kind of creep forward a little bit, just kind of following this bear. And he knew we were there. He jumped up and kind of looked at us a couple of times. And my wife was in the car with the windows rolled up, and I got out of the car and tried to get a better view of this guy. So I got up on the top of the Jeep and got the camera out and tried zooming in and stuff. And he was just out of the frame enough to not be seen. So maybe like 40, 50 yards. Just keeping that distance, 40, 50, not any closer, not really any further. And he was just kind of following the berries. And man, it was so cool hearing this guy. He was just making so much noise, just that huffing and panting and breathing, like he was like stuffing his face. I mean, if I had like my favorite meal in front of me and I was told this is my last meal and I got a minute to eat it, that's how I would eat it. I mean, I would just stuff my face. And this guy was just ripping the bushes up. He was making so much noise. I don't think he was trying to scare us or anything. He was just really, really busy stuffing his face. So that was really cool. Once in a while, he kind of stood up on his feet, looked around, and gave us a good look at him. Beautiful bear. I don't know if it was a boar or a sow or what. Definitely a black bear. But we did not pick berries that night. You know, my wife wanted nothing to do with this area, so we took off and did not get any berries picked out. Oh, about probably 2 weeks later, I convinced my wife to go get some more huckleberries, this time to a different spot. We have been in this area before. We have picked a couple gallons out of this area before in previous years. And it's a really good spot. Nobody ever around. We've never seen anyone else parked in this area, but we can get gallons of huckleberries in a couple of hours. So really good productive area. So we decided to come back to this area because we did not want to go back to the other area. I mean, I wouldn't have minded, but my wife said no, there's a bear in there, I don't want to get anywhere near that thing. So we went to this other area, and this time I actually ended up letting her drive. She wanted to drive. Figured why not, maybe I'll have a better chance seeing some wildlife, get some videos or something. So she's driving, and we covered a lot of ground, probably, I don't know, 30 miles at this point, and I haven't seen a deer, I haven't seen an elk, a bear, a wolf. There's just nothing out, and I'm just like, man, what is going on? What a beautiful day. It's huckleberry season. There's got to be something out. And so I actually prayed to God quietly, without letting my wife know, asking God to let us see a bear. And sure enough, we pulled up to this huckleberry spot. It's kind of like a tube spot. I don't know what you call it. This first spot that I've never picked huckleberries in long term, and I wanted to check it out because it was easier picking. It was closer to the ground. The bushes were a lot shorter and less wading through the brush and bushwhacking for them. So stopped in this one spot, and the bears just aren't that great. We both got out. We both got our buckets out. We both picked maybe a handful or two, and we just decided, let's go to the other spot. It's like 200 yards down the road. So got back in the car. We get to this other spot, and my wife said, you know what, I'll sit in the car, you just come out, check to see if they're good or not, come back, tell me if they're good, then I'll come out. So what do? I get out of the car, grab my camera, my phone, and just start waltzing through the forest like I own the place. I get in there, and I immediately see this bear just jump up right in front of me and just start running up the hill. And I got a video of this guy too, barely. I mean, I could see his ears and his snout in there, but I don't know exactly if this is a grizzly or a black bear. But I think at the closest I was probably 30 yards, 40 yards from this guy. And could have been a grizzly, but by the ears, I think it's a black bear, maybe a younger black bear. You guys tell me what you think about that guy. But got back in the car, told my wife, she's like, I am not coming out. I can't believe you prayed to see a bear. She was pretty upset. And we kept driving. She's like, I don't want to have anything to do with this area. Let's get 50 miles away from here. So we did. So we kept driving and driving and driving, and I was trying to hit this one elevation because I figured, you know, if they're at this elevation at that other spot, maybe they might be at the same elevation at this other spot. So we kept driving and driving, and there's some water running down the hill, and I decided to pull over and check to see if it's a spring or if it's some kind of runoff of a pond or what. So stopped the car, got out, and I immediately hear my tire leaking air. And I don't have a spare on me at all. Just that weekend I left the spare at the shop because it was completely deflated, 0 psi, and the shop said it was 14 years old. They weren't going to replace it or repair it. So I dropped off the rim, ordered a new spare from them, and I was going to pick it up a few days later. But I figured that thing was probably 0 psi for months, if not years, because I've never needed to use it. So what's the likelihood of me needing to use it this weekend? And didn't take a spare with me, just had a tiny little air compressor about that big, and got it flat 38 miles out of town. So we jump in the car, turn around, and just start hauling ass back to town. We had to pull over 4 times to air up the tire. I think I let it get to like 29 psi, and I'd get out, air it up to 40, and keep driving. So that was about 20 minutes or so of driving before I would get to 29 again. Aired it up to 40, and then did that 4 times to get home. So that little air compressor saved my ass. Got home, needed to get to work the next day, don't have a spare, and I bought those slime tire plugs. I ended up sticking one of those in, and the next day my tire shop told me they did not have the tire that I purchased in stock, even though they told me they had 4. They had none, so they weren't going to get it to me in time. And so I took my spare back and I said, screw you guys, I'm going to go somewhere else. And by the time I got a new spare mounted, I think it was probably 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, something like that. It was ridiculous. And I drove on that plug for a while. So that thing, it actually held. I went for 2 or 3, 4 weeks, something like that, without losing any pressure whatsoever. So good thing to have in your car. I definitely have some of those in my car now, and I'm gonna do a review video and demonstration video probably about all the stuff that I keep in my car at all times now, after all the crap that I've dealt with in the mountains, mostly solo. But that was another bear encounter. Gosh, I just remembered another one. My wife and I went to a carnival fair thing a couple hours away from our place, and she's been doing this growing up with her family, and they usually go to this fair for a couple days, and then they go camping on the way home. And so we decided to follow the family tradition. The family brought out their camper. We weren't married at the time, and I wasn't staying in the camper. I stayed in the tent. They decided to go home straight from the fair without camping out anywhere, but my wife and I decided to camp out, carry that family tradition. It was just going to be one night. And so we went to a spot by a river, pretty much 100 camping spots, and they were all taken along this river. There were so many people in every direction. I mean, you can hear people, you can hear music, you can hear engines running, and it's like pretty wild of an area. And we brought the fishing rods, and we had the tent and a whole bunch of mountain house and stuff like that. We were just gonna car camp because it was right by the road. We'll pull off to camp by the river. And we cook food. We get all the food kind of packed away. It's still kind of out. We've tried to do some fishing all day, didn't catch anything. And as it's starting to get dark, this black patch starts moving through the trees across the river. So the river's probably only about, oh gosh, I don't know, 20 yards wide. Maybe at the deepest, I don't know, 3 to 5 yards, something like that at the deepest. This bear could have swam across if he wanted to. But about 100 yards away, probably from where we were camping to where this bear was. And he just started moving through the woods, and it's starting to get dark, but we could see him really well.
You just sit down.
You should get my binoculars. Oh, it's starting to rain, man. I was afraid of that. Looks like it's about to start pouring here any second now. Oh, welcome to spring in Montana. Wind's really taking off. But anyways, about that bear. We probably saw him for about 20 minutes from when we first saw him to where we couldn't see him anymore. And he did not care we were there. I mean, he looked right at us and just kept walking slowly, 100 yards away, keeping that distance. And he did not try swimming across that we know of. I shined the flashlight at him. I blew the air horn at him. He did not care. I didn't think he was going to come into camp overnight because he saw us and he knew we were there. But just in case, I put all of the food in the cooler. That was a bear-resistant cooler, and we put it about 100 yards away from us. He didn't bother us all night, but it was raining all night, thunderstorms, lightning. I slept like a baby. My wife could not sleep. She was sick all night, going in and out of the tent. I think she even said she threw up or something, but she was scared. She was uncomfortable. That mountain house did not sit right with her. We just had really bad experience that night, I guess, with that. But that was one of the coolest bear encounters, I thought. My wife obviously does not like bear encounters. I think they're absolutely cool, and I'm not scared of bears for the most part. I think you should just be smart, learn to read bears, learn to understand what they want, what they don't want. And they really don't want to get into a fight with a human, so just, tell them you're there, let them know your presence, let them know you're not about to take crap, but also don't try to call them in, don't put food in there, don't pretend like you're a dying rabbit, and you probably won't have any problems. So, oh man, well, that's about it. I really can't think of any more. Probably should have done my research better and wrote them all down so I can remember them, but that's about it. Well, it's starting to rain pretty good. That's why I need a hat like this. 4X cowboy felt hat. So, welcome to Montana.